Antonio Daniels, 13-year NBA vet, NBA champ, studio analyst, Sirius XM NBA. He's a busy guy. Thunder Live, Pelicans Live, and now Sportsnet 590 Live. Antonio Daniels, good morning.
Good morning, fellas. Thanks for having me.
Happy to. Do you find that kind of funny? He goes to Houston. It's like no buzz whatsoever, but everybody would have hammered him if Golden State had a roster spot open for him, right?
Well, I think everybody would have just probably said the fact that he was chasing a ring, because I think nowadays, we all know if you want a ring, the easiest place to go to is Golden State because of the way their roster is constructed. But I mean, I'm gonna be honest. Watching Carmelo Anthony all last year in Oklahoma City, I think he's going to bring something to Houston. I really do. I'm not on the let's bash Carmelo train where he can't do this and he can't do that. Yeah, he's not the player that he once was, and he's going to have to put his ego aside to continue to help himself and also help the Houston Rockets, but he still does have something left in the tank.
You think that when the Rockets brought him in, they told him, you can't be that guy. I mean, you're going to have to put your ego aside. You have to tell us right now that that's going to be something you can do.
I think Houston offers him something that really no other team outside of the Los Angeles Lakers can offer Carmelo, and that's a relationship. He has a relationship with Chris Paul like he has a relationship with LeBron James. So it's a drastic difference when a good friend of yours sits you down and talks to you about something that is significant to you and him. So when him and Chris Paul sit down and Chris Paul tells him, look here, Carmelo, man, look, if you come off the bench, we can accomplish this. We were one hamstring away from possibly winning the NBA Finals or going to the NBA Finals. So if you come off the bench and bring that explosion off the bench or that role that we need you to play, we're a completely different team. And I think that's different coming from Chris Paul or coming from LeBron James, two guys that he has an established relationship with, as opposed to coming from some GM from another team.
Antonio Daniels, our guest, won the NBA title with the Spurs. They beat the Knicks in the final, 13 years in the league. You can hear him on Sirius XM NBA radio. So your old teammate, the guy you won with, the Admiral, comes out yesterday, and he was on with Rachel Nichols, and he talked about Kawhi, and he said, you know the Admiral. He's a great guy, doesn't like a lot of controversy, doesn't put himself out there a ton, but he said, I tried to talk to that guy a lot, and he might have said as many words as there are fingers on my hand, basically paraphrasing.
Right.
That's really interesting coming from David, because like I said, he likes to play it the straight and narrow. He's not Dennis Rodman, right? He's not going to North Korea to create world peace. That's David Robinson. Were you surprised he was sort of more outspoken about Kawhi?
But I didn't think he was outspoken. I thought he was truthful.
Yeah.
And there's a difference, because sometimes somebody can be outspoken and kind of stretch the truth, or in today's culture, it's a hot take culture. Let's see what we can say to kind of rile people up. And David's not built that way. David was truthful in what he said, because he didn't even say it in a confrontational manner. He said it like, you know what, I reached out to him a couple times and, I didn't hear anything back, or I tried to talk to him a couple times. And I think that is more about the person Kawhi Leonard is than David Robinson trying to row or start some kind of trouble. I think Kawhi Leonard's just a quiet guy. He is just a flat-out quiet guy. And I live in San Antonio. So when I was here in San Antonio, Kawhi Leonard came here, people loved that about him. They loved it. He's a Spurs guy. He doesn't need the spotlight. He shines away from everybody. He doesn't celebrate. He can just go on about his business and not be worried about all the things that everybody else is worried with. Now everybody has a problem with him being quiet. It's tough to ask somebody to step out of being who they are.
So that's an okay guy as a teammate. All kinds of guys inhabit dressing rooms. Even if a guy seems aloof, he doesn't talk to his teammates. We know that Kyrie Irving in his final days didn't talk to any of the Cavaliers during the playoffs at the end there. What's it like to have a teammate like that?
I've never had one. I'm going to be honest with you. I've never had one. And that's why it's for someone, you are around each other more than you're around your own family throughout the course of a regular season. But you also have to understand, and you think about it like a family. There are times within our own families that we may be upset with someone, and we may go a week or so without speaking to that person, or 2 weeks without speaking to that person. But with athletes, we expect it to be different. It happens in locker rooms. I've seen guys so upset at each other that they didn't really speak to each other throughout the course of the season at all. Like they played together and they high-fived each other, but when the game was over, they basically went back to being enemies. I've seen that before. So you have to think of this almost like you think of your own family. Your own family does not get along all the time.
Give us the most. It's great having you got a refreshing honesty. So give us this refreshing honesty when it comes to Toronto as an NBA market. I mean, I like this city, but I've also lived in other NBA markets, and I say I don't think you quite realize what it means to get traded to a foreign country. If Mexico City was in the NHL and a Canadian player got traded there, we know what the reaction would be. And that's despite how great Toronto is, and you played in Vancouver, so you're the perfect person to ask this. Do you think the Raptors and Toronto as an NBA destination has changed as a landscape? Because when you're playing, Tracy McGrady gets out, Vince Carter forces his way out, Chris Bosh leaves. A lot of players said, it's not going well for me there, and I don't want to be there anymore.
I tell you what, Toronto's one of the best NBA cities. It is. It's one of the best NBA cities. But let me put this at the end: to visit. To go in for a couple of days and great restaurants, great nightlife, whatever you want to call it. But what kills, obviously, is the taxes. The taxes. Because, anywhere else, you're going to find cold. You're going to find snow. You can go to Milwaukee. You can find cold. You can go to Cleveland. You can find cold. You can find snow. It's enough of that. Chicago, the taxes is what really gets you in Toronto. The taxes and customs and, every time you go in and out, having to go through customs, and it's a process.
So players talk about this. It's a pain in the ass. They all talk about it, right?
Yes, it is. And being an NBA athlete, you become spoiled. You become spoiled with travel. You're used to driving to the airplane, getting off the plane, and driving to the plane and getting on the plane. That's it. There's no airports. There's no security. There's nothing else. So now when you go through Toronto, now it's different. You land, and the custom guy has to come on, check everybody's passport, and you get off. You got to go through the airport and do security. When you leave, you got to go. So it's just more of a hassle than anything else.
No question about it. I've been on many a plane flying in with a team, and it can keep you there for a while sometimes, and guys really are unhappy with that situation. We're talking to Antonio Daniels, longtime NBA veteran, NBA champion. What are they doing in Los Angeles? It looks like that's the end game as far as Kawhi Leonard is concerned, that this is a way station, a year in Toronto, unless they flip him before then. And so the thinking in Los Angeles as far as LeBron at his age and this year is concerned, do you think they were ready to make this a year of let's wait till next year?
And to me, I don't understand that concept. I'm going to be honest. I do not understand that concept because LeBron James is not going to be the best player on the planet forever. It's not going to happen. It will come a time in his life, like it's come in everyone else's life, where you start to decline and you start to head in the other direction. So while you have LeBron James as the best player on the planet, you have to take advantage of it. And basically to throw this year away and say, you know what, let's not worry about competing for a championship this year. Let's wait until next year. I think you are really, really taking a gamble, especially if that gamble is Kawhi Leonard. Because I honestly believe that what happened in Oklahoma City with Paul George and Sam Presti has changed the game. Because what that has told GMs is, you know what, maybe we can bring a top-tier guy in where everybody's saying he's going to leave and go to a bigger market. He's going to leave and go to L.A. like Paul George is going to. And we can bring him around his fan base, bring him around his organization, show him who we are, and then keep him here long term. I think what happened with Paul George really changed the NBA landscape as far as that one-year rental is concerned.
Well, Antonio, you know as well as anybody, I mean, they were counting on him. They thought they had him. They were sure they had Paul George. They didn't need to even make a trade for him in the offseason. They were going to get him for free. And I'll tell you what, I don't know how you feel about this. I said this the morning that this was breaking. If I'm Magic Johnson and I'm Rob Pelinka,
Agreed.
I'm sure calling the Raptors just to throw some names out there. And like you said, you get LeBron James, he's 34 and a half when the playoffs start next year. The year after, when you get Kawhi for free, he's 35 and a half. So I'm pitching the Raptors on a deal. Might involve Kuzma, might involve Ingram. I don't want to trade Kuzma, but I want Kawhi right now to settle in and have that extra year with him. I agree with you 100%. I'm making that call to the Raptors going, how are things? Anything going on? Let's talk.
Right, and I felt that way about when Kawhi was still with the Spurs. I honestly felt that way. You know, if you have an opportunity to acquire a Kawhi Leonard, and I get the thought process if you're Magic Johnson, why acquire him now if free agency comes around and I get a chance to acquire him then? But there's no saying once free agency comes around that Kawhi Leonard's coming. Because who knows what happens this year in Toronto? You know, if you look at the landscape of the East, Toronto is not out of – it's not far-fetched to say today that Toronto could easily come out of the East. That's not far-fetched to say. Now, if you're Magic Johnson, those guys, and you are banking on Kawhi Leonard coming as a free agent, and Toronto wins the East, now that really changes things. Because now if I'm Kawhi Leonard, I want to see if I can build on what we built here with Kyle Lowry. You know, I want to see if we can build on what we built here with the best bench in the league. So I think it's a heck of a gamble because if I'm Magic Johnson, I'm saying, look, if I have an opportunity to acquire Kawhi Leonard and put him next to the best player on the planet right now, why he's the best player on the planet, I'm going to take advantage of it.
All right, with Antonio Daniels talking about the future of the NBA and what might be in Los Angeles. How long does this Golden State Warrior thing go on for? They're eventually going to run up against contracts. Who stays? Who takes under market? And does this continue for a while?
You know what's weird is I honestly felt like things would start to, I don't want to say crumble, but head the wrong way in 2019. And I think what may be the deciding factor here is Draymond Green. Draymond Green has come out publicly and said, you know what, I'm not taking less than a max deal. Understand, Kevin Durant was just giving up less money these past 2 years to play in Golden State. Klay Thompson is a free agent in 2019. So now what happens is when you have a guy that's not due yet telling you he's not going to pay, he's not going to take less, and now it's my opportunity to come up, why would I take less? So now what happens is by saying that, you're putting everybody else in a different position. So now if I'm Klay Thompson, I'm thinking, okay, I can take less and stay here, or I can get paid the max and move on. Because Draymond Green's not taking less than the max, so why should I take less than the max? So it's going to come a point where all these contracts are going to start to catch up. These egos are going to start to catch up. Then it's going to come to the point where if I'm Klay Thompson, am I saying, well, you know what, I won 2 or 3 championships, 3 or 4 championships. Now let me show everybody I can have my own team. Or do I want to continue to take less money and stay in Golden State?
Antonio, I think Klay Thompson's a Laker a year from now. I think he plays where his dad plays. Magic was a hero of his. That's where I think he goes.
That's not far-fetched. That is not far-fetched to think that because he is the perfect fit for LeBron James.
Yep.
Perfect fit for LeBron James. If there is a guy in the league that you can take off a roster and put him next to LeBron James and say, you know what, this is a classic 1-2 punch, Klay Thompson. So that's not far-fetched to think about.
Antonio Daniels, a terrific guest you were again. We thank you so much, and we look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you guys for having me.